Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Thank you guys for joining us once again today.
Hi, you guys. It's wonderful to see everybody here again.
So, yeah, did this picture scare you guys? The thumbnail there, did that like terrify you? And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, "Oh my God, he came around to flat Earth," and other ones are going to be saying, "Oh my God, he's talking about flat Earth."
Yeah, I know it's a scary concept either way. If you're a flat earther, it's scary to think of the Earth round. If you're a round earther, it's scary to think of the Earth flat.
And we're going to touch on that as well as a lot of other things going on. This one's going to be more focused on the Earth changes, but then we're going to bring up some things about, some alternatives, alternative living. And we've been touching on that more and more all the time. And, like Cindy and I were just talking, and she's, just saying, we got to be prepared to move because we just don't know what's going to happen. And although, I've shared with you guys that since we got here, it feels like there's nothing going on. It never feels like there's anything going on as far as catastrophic earth changes. Here in the desert, it's very, very uneventful, and maybe that's a blessing.
It's uneventful, and we have sunshine every day. There's a lot of really, really good things here, and it's nice. We have family, and things are pretty wonderful, really.
Yeah, and that's what Cindy's been experiencing the whole time. We could read the headlines when it doesn't happen to us. It's just not as real, as when you're in the middle of it. So, for those people that, were there when, one of the hurricanes hit, whether it's, Florence, Michael, Harvey, we can name, there's so many of them, or, some of the floods, like our brother Andrew and Ruben up there, in Nebraska, being right in the middle of all the flooding and having them send me photos, and they're getting trapped by the floods. Can't go this way down the street. Can't go that way down a different street. My cousin's up in Nebraska too. It's pretty wild. And then I get a lot of photos from you guys of the extreme snow going on, the extreme cold. And yesterday we went for a hike. I didn't post the video yet, just because I was trying to space out all the videos of unusual rocks, because I know some people don't care about unusual rocks, even though some of them might be mud fossils, some of them might be indications of underground bases, things like that. But anyway, we did go for a hike yesterday, and it was relatively nippy for here. I think we were really only in the 50s, but we went up a pretty good incline, so we were sweating our butts off, even though it was only in the 50s. But it felt great.
It did. Actually, by the time we were done, we'd worked up a sweat. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, which felt great. And when we were up in Shasta too, it was nice. Really, it was mid 60s, low 60s, and being there out in the woods, we went and meditated in this one spot. And I tell you, it felt like there's nothing wrong with the world, when you're out away from things, and you're not experiencing it yourself. But as we're going to see, yet another day, yet many, many other disasters across the globe.
Yeah, we collect rocks too. We got some really, really pretty ones, and we have some that are like solid white, but they look like quartz, and some that are kind of bluish and quartzy looking. Some really interesting rocks out there in the desert. We brought a few home. They're gorgeous.
Yeah, some that look like perhaps geodes.
Yeah, geodes. They got little bubblies on them. They're really cool. I kind of want to cut a couple of them open. I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
So you guys think Greta Thunberg is a time traveler, or do you think she's a clone? We talked about that before. That honestly, it looked identical to her. It really did, and even at the same age, it was kind of a very curious photo. Is this all, or maybe that photo is actually, maybe that's BS and just planted.
I didn't share this with you, but I do have a photo of myself that looks, it's back in like the 1950s. She looks exactly like myself. I need to pull that up for you.
a relative?
It's in a family photo book, but I don't know who she is. She looks just like me. She does.
Oh. Well, one of your daughters looks almost exactly like you.
She's my clone.
Yeah, pretty much. She's a boy? Bob says she's a boy. You know, well, I didn't think we were talking about Michelle Obama. Oops. Sorry, I got off track there.
Demonetized.
I got... well, the same thing happened with yesterday's. You know, it's demonetized until all the views are pretty much in, and then they monetize it. So, you know, it is what it is. Baron Trump, yes, that was an interesting thing, too. You got to wonder about our reality here. You know, you really do.
Fed up a doppelganger. Yes, I know a little bit about a doppelganger. I've seen somebody's show. I can't remember the name of him right away, but he does talk about doppelgangers, and those are pretty cool, too.
Disinfo to change the topic, maybe, perhaps. Nazi breeding, perhaps. You know, I always, you know, right away, the whole creating the perfect genetic lineage, quote unquote, with the Nazis, and they happen to be contacted by the Nord, you know, the Nordic ETs, or maybe they're inner Earth people, really, or maybe they're leftover survivors of Atlantis, really, or interdimensionals, really. Who knows? You know, it could be any or all of these things going on. It's really pretty interesting. And Raven says, essence will inhabit similar genetics, has to be able to hold the energy. You know, there's definitely a lot of interesting possibilities with that idea as well. And yeah, life after life, you do see. I mean, I've seen people that, you know, I recognize as looking a lot like me in different circumstances. And you think, how many variations really are there possible as well? Captain Nobody should be home in school.
You're so naughty. Naughty Captain Nobody.
Well, it's Sunday here, right?
Yes, it's Sunday here.
I hardly ever know what day it is, truly. So Rosemary, hello, good morning, Rosemary. So it's Monday morning there, I would take, right, in Australia. Yeah, it's the Truman Show. Most definitely, it's the Truman Show. Like when I was in Florida, and right before I left Florida, boy, the lightning was getting pretty intense. The thunder was getting pretty intense. Seemed to be increasing in intensity. And then, you know, went to North Carolina for about 9 months and then came out this way. So shall we, maybe we'll start with, instead of going into the news, why don't we start with this? So this is, again, this is live science, and so this is mainstream. And here's the question: what if the Earth was flat? You know, how would that work? Gravity? What gravity? So, you know, I'll just give you this article. The Earth is a sphere. It's a simple fact that humans have known for thousands of years. It was incontrovertible. Okay, did you say that one for me?
Where are you at? I was watching chat.
Incontrovertibly confirmed.
Incontrovertibly, you got it.
As soon as the Soviet Union launched the Sputnik satellite in 1957, and it went, around the globe. Nonetheless, a small but vocal group of people who insist that the world is flat, so-called flat earthers, have emerged online in recent years, and they seem to be sowing doubt about this most basic aspect of reality. Many flat earthers put a great deal of effort into concocting alternative explanations for why the world behaves as if it's round when it's actually flat. Even though a spherical Earth clearly fits the observations humans have made about the planet over the last few millennia. However, if the Earth somehow truly was flat, it would not behave much like the planet we know, and in fact, humanity and everything else would be very, very dead. So, are flat earthers being serious? I mean, is it really serious? Well, one of the questions I have is, how many flat earthers are also literalist Bible believers? Because I think that goes hand in hand. I'm thinking it goes hand in hand. Maybe I'm incorrect in that assumption. But it feels to me like it does go hand in hand. People take the Bible extremely literally and as the only authority that there really is. And I think those are your majority of flat earthers. But That's my suspicion. But going back into this article, to shape a cosmic body into a disk rather than a sphere, you've got to spin it very fast, says David Stevenson, planetary science at Caltech in Pasadena. This would unfortunately destroy the planet by tearing it into tiny particles. In the 1850s, astronomer James Clerk Maxwell showed mathematically that a solid disk-like shape isn't a stable configuration in the cosmos, in work he conducted regarding Saturn's rings. Maxwell's research predicted that Saturn's rings would be made of lots of small, unconnected particles. He turned out to be right. His math also explained why there are no planet-sized disks floating around the galaxy. To flatten the Earth without spinning it very rapidly, you'd need magic, or perhaps a galactic panini press. At any rate, a stamped flat Earth wouldn't last for long. Within a few hours, the force of gravity would press the planet back into a spheroid. Gravity pulls equally from all sides, which explains why planets are spheres, or nearly so. Depending on the speed of a planet's rotation, those forces may work against gravity to create a bit of a bulge at the equator. A stable, solid disk-like Earth just isn't possible under the actual conditions of gravity, as Maxwell's math showed. So once you get rid of gravity, everything else about our planet rapidly stops making sense. The atmosphere, gone, because it's held to the planet by gravity. Tides, gone. They're caused by gravitational pull of the moon, which tugs on the oceans and causes them to subtly bulge out as it swings by. The moon itself, also gone, since the explanation of the moon's existence involves gravity. In the most widely accepted scenario, the moon was created when a giant planet-sized body crashed into the Earth. Debris from the crash was captured by Earth's gravity. Another scenario suggests that the moon formed at the same time as the Earth did, again thanks to gravity, or Earth's formidable gravity attracted and snagged a traveling hunk of space rock as it went hurtling by. Simple calculations. Gravity is also responsible for the Earth's layered structure, with the densest materials sinking to the core, lighter materials making up the mantle, and the lightest materials forming the crust. Without this layered structure, the planet would behave a lot differently. The Earth's liquid outer core, for example, acts as a giant dynamic magnet, which creates the planet's magnetic field. The magnetic field helps to protect the planet's atmosphere from the stripping effect of the solar wind, which scraped away Mars's atmosphere after that planet's magnetic field faltered 4 billion years ago. If the Earth were flat, plate tectonics, the movement of rigid plates that make up the planet's crust, wouldn't work either, says James Davis, a geophysicist at Columbia University's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory in New York City. When you do the calculations, just simple calculations like if this plate is moving this much and that plate is moving that much, you have to do it on a sphere, he told Life Science. You don't get the right answer, the answer that matches real-world observations, if you assume it's a plane. Flat earthers spin different explanations for how all these observations could be possible on a flat planet. The problem, Davis says, is that these explanations don't have any basis in mathematics or physical reality. When Maxwell predicted in the 1850s that Saturn's rings were made of a lot of small particles, he did so by applying general knowledge of how gravity and rotational forces work. His essay on the subject, in fact, was mostly mathematical equations. Flat Earth theories don't work that way, Davis says. The flat Earth worldview also involves cherry-picking different explanations for different phenomena. In real life, Earth and Moon are both round for the same quantifiable reason, gravity. Flat Earth believers have to invent independent explanations for both, and these independent explanations often contradict each other. So this isn't how scientific theory works, Davis says. If we can explain 1,000 observations with one theory, a simple theory, that's better than explaining 1,000 observations with 1,000 theories, he said. But setting all that aside, if the Earth truly were flat, it would mean that the millions of scientists who deny its flatness, and those who have done so throughout history, are united in a vast conspiracy for reasons that are flat out unfathomable. That's cute. It also makes the prospect of a galactic panini press look realistic. Almost. And then it doesn't fit for me with the as above, so below. So that's the thing that really hits me, because when we look at how, the microcosm and the macrocosm work, it just doesn't make any sense. The only way I would really believe this is one one scenario, and I'm going to hand the mic over to Cindy.
I know Douglas D says here, he says, as long as my beer ain't flat. I agree. That's fabulous. You guys are you're thinking a lot like I do along the lines of, I am just really happy that things are being questioned, really. Is it flat? Is it round? Is it spherical? Is it triangle? Is it square? I want things questioned because I know I had such a hard time in school, and looking back at what my daughter is learning and my grandchildren are learning, everything has changed. Everything. Like math isn't even the same. It's like somehow they can take 1 + 1 and make it 3. And the new core curriculum, core learning, I forgot the name of it. It's just really different, really odd, and nothing they say ever stays the same.
So this is the only way I would believe that the Earth is flat. And in the movie Dark City, as it turns out, it's all an experiment by aliens, and you're on a big ship. You're not really on a planet, even though there are planets and there are suns out there. Like in the last scene, we see basically the protagonist, the hero of the movie, realizing his psychic abilities and that he could not only match the aliens, he could exceed them. And so he takes control of the ship and turns it from a dark city into one where it's facing the sun. And the sun is there, and there are other planets there. It just so happened that the Earth turned out to be actually not a planet at all, but actually a big spaceship, and it was all aliens running the whole thing. So that's the only way I'm going to really believe in a flat Earth.
I don't know. I'm just going to have to wait and see what happens when I die. I really don't know. The information comes and goes. And oh, wow. Hi, Glasgow, Scotland. It's great to see you guys. And everybody. Hi, Swiftbird. Hi, Douglas. Hi, Ambient. Hi, Pete. Repeat. I love that name. You guys are so fun.
So, or the other thing too is the fact that we do know we're in a matrix. We, at least most of us believe we are in some sort of matrix. And so, there are scientists that have come out and said, hey, we live in a matrix and this 3D reality appears to be a holograph. And, the real world is actually 2D. And this is a projection from the 2D world. So that 2D world would be flat. So if you want to look at it in that point of view, then okay, I could accept that as well. Pete Repeat says we are in a spaceship now. It's interesting. You see the legends of Tiamat and, the asteroid belt that's sitting there. Are we? You got to wonder. Hey there, Barbara. Joe Free. It's good to see all you guys. Jordan. I feel like we are, and I did a video once, that just showed like an ant farm, and I think we are on an ant farm. And Martin sent me a video, as well as a couple other people this morning, all sent me the same video, and it was Ben at Suspicious Observers talking about the cover-up and how Hapgood was actually Charles Hapgood, who talked all about crustal displacement theory, along with Velikovsky. Those two guys are the two drivers, of the huge, immense catastrophes that we go through. And then Shan Thomas' story, which was, something that was classified by the feds and then eventually declassified in a sanitized version. And, then now there's unsanitized versions available. If what they're saying is coming, there's really kind of like, you could go climb the biggest mountain, you may not still make it. If they're, what they're talking about is massive with, just the nova of the sun and the resulting motion of the poles. And I think the second most viewed video I did was about, pole shift, and it had like 250,000 views. We are in a magnetic pole reversal. It's at least an excursion, because the last 4 or 5 times it's only been an excursion. It keeps popping back, and yet, you listen to what Ben's starting to. Well, it sounds like he's totally convinced now. as so many others are, like Douglas Vogt at Diehold. The big event happens every 12,000, but there's other events that come every 5,000 that are pretty intense as well. And, it does seem that we popped out of nowhere as far as our civilization here about 5,000 years ago. But we see, things like, some of the ruins, Göbekli Tepe, and some of the other areas. I mean, look it up in Anatolia. The amount of people you could fit in the underground caves in Turkey is probably in the millions when you get down to it. So, the elite they're getting their, tunnels all set. They're getting their underground cities all set. There's ships in the sky on a regular basis. I mean, we see these ships. I mean, I went out last night again at, I think it was about 3 a.m., and I went and looked over where that cluster of lights that I swear was a huge ship was, and there was nothing there. Nothing, so it's not the same pattern of stars by any means. That was a huge, huge ship that just, it made me swear, and I don't swear much.
No, you guys, he doesn't swear a whole lot. So that was really curious. And, when it comes to information being sent out and people giving out information, I just remembered how I think it was Galileo was he thrown in prison? Something happened to him for suggesting that the earth revolved around the sun. So, what does that tell you about people and what they can and can't say, and censorship? So censorship has been going on for quite a while, looks like.
Yeah. So Gabriel says the Navy and Air Force say the earth is flat and stationary. I've never seen them come out with that statement, but hey, anybody that has info, I'm always interested in looking into it. I have read a lot of stuff on flat earth, and I've watched videos on it, and I just wasn't convinced, because there's kind of this inner knowing for one thing, and then also just I've found that one of the most fascinating, interesting sources of information is all the ancient Indian texts. And they talk about, the shape of the galaxy, the span of the galaxy. They talk about other planets having humanoid life on them. I think that they are some of the leftover wisdom probably from Atlantis, and, some of the other societies are gone, long gone.
Yeah, they are, and it's really curious to see the remnants of everything coming and going and coming and going. And like we were looking at the rocks yesterday, and, you can look at them and apply a whole lot of weathering, and who could say whether those could have been buildings at some point? It really did feel like they were structures at some point.
Yeah, and look at all the good point. People were bringing up the monoliths, like talking about Stonehenge, and just these countless remnants that these very advanced civilizations left us, where everything is so precisely aligned astronomically. It just doesn't work if the Earth is a pizza. I know. Hey, I like pizza. Pizza's great. Actually, I wouldn't mind having some pizza today, honestly. But we haven't been eating a lot of carbs, so that could be why I'm starting to crave it.
Yeah, we've been pretty good, actually. We just got off a fast the day before yesterday, and we've been eating like really good. I'm surprised. I used to eat horrible, and then I met you, and oh my God, I don't eat any more preservatives anymore, you guys. I mean, it's crazy. No more yucky stuff. I'm super healthy now. This is wonderful.
And I agree with Pete Repeat. Competing races of aliens / interdimensionals / inner earth. I think there's a lot of things going on. I think there's a lot of different things. Maybe this is, maybe this is a place that's like one of those non-interference zones in a way where they could manipulate us, get us to do things, get us to fight each other for sure. And yet they have to allow each experiment to go on. And of course, then there's those that cheat. Greek pizza. Okay, guys, I'm getting starving here listening to you guys.
Yeah, right. You guys are really wonderful. Yeah, I think that I have a sense that there's some form of karma holding essence in the universe where, different races can do different things, but it still has to come out fair in the karma world. I can't really articulate and go into detail. It's just a real strong sense that I have. And, in the past, like usually when I have these strong senses, they've turned out to be kind of right. So that's what I think. I think somebody up high holds the karma around here.
Yeah. I mean, it oh yeah, Hillary and the truth. Those two don't go in the same sentence. You can't put those in the same sentence. It's not possible, is it? But then it's the same thing with politicians all over the place. As we're gonna take a look at some stuff. Dark Crusher says, I notice my ideology keeps changing as new things, and that's growth. Applauds, much applause to you, Dark Crusher, because that's exactly, you got to keep an open mind and just move forward. And, like I was explaining to you how I could see, flat earth, the only two situations I could kind of conceive it. Would I be surprised if we found out that we are actually in some massive spaceship, and it's not, the Earth is not even completely real, or it's leftovers from Tiamat that they've, engineered. And, I wouldn't be too surprised, honestly. I really wouldn't be too surprised. But then I've gone to the position now where I feel like I do think the moon is not real. I do think that the moon is probably a base. And I do feel, after seeing all the legends of all the different indigenous people where they remember when the moon came here, I think it was put here. That's kind of my feeling on that. And Raven out there, we've talked about this. And if Raven Kiefer wants to share anything on that about the moon being put here and who put it here over there in the chat room, I would love to see him give us some info on that. So it's really, really interesting to think about all that. The truth will make men's hearts fail, perhaps, yes. And the moon is a recycling center, Ken James. I love that you said that, because there's a lot. We were discussing that about souls going to the moon, and it was just you and I talking. We weren't talking about this on any of our shows.
No, we weren't. The moon holds a lot of curious things about it. The most interesting thing I found out about the moon when I was studying herbs is women cycle with the moon, and I didn't know that. I had no idea. I thought that was the most interesting thing that I had ever heard, because it really put things in perspective for me about how we go through life cycles. We're young, and then we're like spring chickens, and we're a little older, and then we're crones, and like everything is in a cycle. That's why I thought that was really fascinating about the moon. And, I think, I'm not sure how it goes exactly. I think you ovulate on a new moon, and you have your menses on a full moon or something like that. But that was really super curious. And hi, Chris P. In Marvel, the Inhumans live on the moon. Yeah, that's probably true. And there's a lot of things, a lot of disclosure about the moon too. Now, I have heard about stories that natives talk about before the moon was even here. And that tells me that, yeah, it very well could have been pulled into orbit. So then there's that, and if it was pulled into orbit, why then do we cycle with the moon? It's so crazy. There's like so many little puzzle pieces to...
Well, still the gravity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, whether this is here naturally, evolved naturally or not, it would still have a gravitational force exerting on us. And again, like it was saying out that Live Science article, that's the only way the Earth would stay put, unless it's completely is like a ship. And if it is like a ship, then they could maneuver and do everything they want with it. Think about and this came up too, eclipses, for one, just think about the chances of the moon being exactly at the place to give us a total eclipse, right? It's so crazily minuscule, isn't it? Have you guys ever thought about that? So to me, it seems that I think, all this is controlled. All this is controlled. Now, some will automatically just say, well, it's God. To which many people will say, which one? And what are we really calling God? And I think, many beings have been thought to be gods that are not God, not prime creator, not the original source of everything. And I think the evidence is overwhelming for that the beings that have interfered here, none of them are the ultimate source. And there have been probably quite a few different beings that have interfered here or been taking for these divine beings. And, our situation that we find ourselves in, how much of it really is completely manufactured and manipulated at the same time? How about the August 2017 eclipse? Because then the next one that comes almost 7 years later, not perfectly 7 years later, it's like 6 years and 9 months or 6 years and 10 months. That makes a big X across the U.S. It to me, it looked like, okay, they're giving us a clue here. We're in for a roller coaster ride.
We are. And when it comes to the gods or God, that takes me right back to Westworld when I watched that. And, the gods there were simply the humans, and the humans were the gods because they could program the robots, and then the robots become self-aware. And on some level, I feel like that's a little bit of disclosure because we are learning that we can reprogram ourselves. So I don't think anyone knows the one truth, the one true truth, and we may never. But it's always fun to sit here and talk with you guys and find out all these little bits of information that you guys have, little pieces of the puzzle, and we all kind of put it together. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, Soul Reviver says, prepare to be very emotional in the next few weeks. Know that you're being activated. There's a lot of activations going on. There's Becky's bringing up other satellites. Yeah, there are some smaller ones as well that they discovered. It's fascinating too, and I know people get very, very upset when we talk about religion, and that's obviously religion and politics. Those are the two things that set people off the biggest. But really, when we do our research, we do a lot of research, we see Chris P says super synchronistic times, and yeah, we do. And Raven says, what God? They destroyed the original creation, asserted their system when Yellow Sun and Jupiter broke original. And I don't know if I missed anything else by Raven. Okay, I don't think so from before talking about that. When we really start to study, because I think a lot of times people that are completely sold on one line of thinking, they haven't looked at any other line of thinking in great depth, and so like there was a comment on one of the videos I did before, speaking of this, Orphism. And how many of you are familiar with Orphism? And this is just out of Wiki. It's a name given to a set of religious beliefs and practices originating in the ancient Greek and Hellenistic world, as well as from the Thracians, associated with literature ascribed to the mystical poet Orpheus, who descended into the Greek underworld and returned. Orpheus also revered Persephone, who annually descended into the underworld for a season and then returned, and Dionysus, or Bacchus, who also descended into the underworld and returned. And Orpheus was said to have invented the mysteries of Dionysus. Poetry containing distinctly Orphic beliefs has been traced back to 6th century BC, or at least 5th century BC. And the graffiti of the 5th century BC apparently refers to the Orphics. Classical sources such as Plato refer to Orpheus initiators and associated rites, although how far back the Orphic literature in general related to these rites is not certain, as in the illusion mysteries, initiation into Orphic mysteries promised advantages in the afterlife. And so, it is very, very true that there are many dying and resurrection gods that come up with very, very similar stories. And obviously, one of the oldest ones is Osiris, that whole mythology. And I mean, we see photos of Isis. Let me just jump over here. Isis with Horus. And Horus, can be taken in many ways as, humanity and Christ in some ways. And this is way predating biblical texts, way predating. So we see, Isis and Horus. And, here you see Isis and Horus, and you see Mary and Jesus. And so, this is a mythos that is repeated all over the globe many, many, many times. And of course, there are those that say, oh, this is all, copycat, and this is all just the devil putting it in there to confuse you. But it predates by like 2,000 years. And there's a lot of them, as we were saying, Dionysus and Bacchus. And we could go over into Mithricism and see a lot of the Christian beliefs that developed out of that during the Persian exile. And we, talked about the mystery schools and, how on a lot of their rituals, they just blend this. And we're talking about groups like the Golden Dawn and others. They blend Christianity, Judaism, and also the Egyptian mythos, as well as others in certain rituals. And it all goes together. And, is there the Christ energy? Yeah. And are there people that are christened, which means anointed with, a connection to the source that most of us are lacking or not realizing and not trying to cultivate as well. So it's pretty wild, people really need to do research. Well, it's each to his own. If it really floats your boat to just grab onto one line of thinking and not research anything else, then that's okay. I guess it's the world you want to be in. It's the myths that we are given. And are these energies real? Well, I've had my own experiences with Christ, so to speak, and I've had clients that have had their own, kind of very mysterious experiences. So it's fascinating to look at it. And but the fact is that this is universal. And when we look at Krishna, Krishna. We look at the word Christ. There's many that believe that it comes out of Krishna, which again that way predates again as well. And the Gnostics, as we were talking about before, they got severely persecuted to extinction, pretty much, their point of view. So Diana says she hears there's energy workers who are giving it all up. I cannot imagine doing that. No, we got to dig in harder and keep. Yes, Christ consciousness is really what it's all about. It's that Christ consciousness. And, Yogananda wrote a beautiful book. It's a 2-volume set, and it's huge. It's like twice the size of the Bible. And it's all about the second coming, and how really the second coming is all about, coming in each of us. It's growing in each of us. If in my point of view, looking, I don't believe, and I've talked about this before, I don't believe in the blood sacrifice thing. I think that's completely something to take us completely offline, to get us thinking that, we don't have to do anything. All we have to really do is just believe in the blood sacrifice. And how has that worked out for the planet the last 2,000 years? We still have the same system in place. It hasn't worked. We need to actually change our consciousness. That's the thing. We have to actually, live up to the example. And on a different medium, on BitChute. I had somebody make a comment too, that it's going to take bloodshed to have a true revolution. But every time we have a bloody revolution, we come back to square one again, because we're, incurring that negative karma, the law of cause and effect. So there must be another way.
Yeah, and with me, when it came to my awakening, because I went to church, I went to Bible study. I mean, I was like the best housewife, anybody, or house mom. I just tried my absolute best to make sense of it. And then I started looking into the Sumerian tablets and all the history, and then I realized, hey, there's a whole lot of the same stories coming out of the Sumerian tablets that are in the Bible. It just seems like there is so much borrowing going on. And the fact that whenever I did go to church, I really felt like crap, because they were always calling me a sinner. And then I was even fighting myself, because I really enjoyed astrology. I still do enjoy astrology. I love energy work. I love tarot cards. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think this stuff works, and I think it can be a good guidance system. But, in the churches, it's like you were always damned for doing that stuff. And it was really hard to be in there. And I could never make sense of it. But that was my awakening, was learning about how many stories came from the Sumerian tablets, that there was borrowed, that's in the Bible.
Nikki says, "Who was Melchizedek?" And that's just a fascinating story in and of itself. And there's a lot of different thoughts on that, and that it's a different lineage. When you really look into it, there's so many people in the East that have done amazing things as well. Healers. There are yogis that have bilocated, been seen in two places at one time. There's others as well that have risen people from the dead. It's a case of, there are many different traditions going on at the same time. A lot of hidden knowledge. It's been hidden away from us on purpose, and to keep us in this limited matrix. And as Soul Reviver says, the church programmed these idiocies into us to dumb us down, keep us docile, keep us manageable, keep us in fear. And that is very, very true. Gabriel says, if you read the Samoan tablets, then the Bible was corrupted by the reptilians. Yeah, for sure, because they turned it into a blood sacrifice. They're all about blood. Instead of being something that's going to liberate our consciousness. And speaking of consciousness liberating, we're looking at the Schumann. The Schumann's really taking off again. It's heading up. And so, 7.83 is the baseline. We're seeing it at 68 right now. So, everything is changing. Everything is changing. I don't know what, say, like Ben from Suspicious Observers, I really don't know what his spiritual beliefs are. But I don't feel like it's all doom and gloom. I could see what's happening around us. And just to cover some of the events going on today, you see a 6.3 quake off of the Aleutian Islands, and there's some aftershocks there. And if we bring up over here, USGS, you can see the 6.3. And we have a 5.0, and we also have a 4.2, so there's some aftershocks over in that area. 4.0 over here. We're going to talk, there is some swarming that's been going on around Yellowstone, small, but swarming. We see a really curious little one, 1.8 here in New Hampshire. So that's an interesting spot right there. There's always quakes now in Oklahoma. Oklahoma now, because of the fracking, is another quake hotspot area, and we see a little activity over in the New Madrid, and we see that swarm that we were looking at yesterday is gone over in Nevada. And a lot of these, again, I think these are related to just stuff they do on the test sites, but China Lake, Ridgecrest, still got 67 quakes in this area right here. Or are they still fighting the underground wars against the reptilians? I mean, I'm only half jesting with that, really, guys. State of natural disaster declared as extreme flooding displaces 50,000 in the Congo. Over 500,000 people affected by floods in Somalia. So the global situation's ongoing. 34 dead in Kenya after mudslides and floods. And then the Express always hypes things up. But you see here, big one, earthquake warning, tension building on West Coast, fears grow for a magnitude 9 quake. There has been a lot of talk of that. We've talked about the Cascadian event. The Cascadian event could be potentially much worse than what we're going to see with the San Andreas eventually. And of course, there's been a lot of activity. A lot of people are sensing that there might be some really unusual volcanic activity going on now, and perhaps some areas that are not even thought to be volcanic, in our even remotely near past, perhaps are starting to wake up. And so, I have heard that I've gotten word that there was smells that would be very, very reminiscent of volcanic activity over in the North Carolina mountains. And before I left, one of my neighbors over there, about 10 miles away, reported that their well water got hot. And that's definitely something that to me would indicate possible volcanic activity going on. And, that was about 30 miles west of Asheville. And then the other thing is the Yellowstone swarming, 193 quakes in a month. And that's not unprecedented, but it is unusual. And of course, we've had unusual geyser activity there as well. And, Yellowstone goes, it's obviously not going to be a good situation for any of us. And if we have that micronova event, it's the same thing. It's not going to be a good situation for any of us on the surface. The inner Earth people will be okay. But those of us on the surface will be seeing a 2012 type scenario.
Yeah, we really could. Raven, I can't read it. I lost it there. Raven, a humanarium does have limits, would need reset occasionally. Ant people, inner Earth, maybe the switch flippers. I don't know, Raven. I haven't heard of those, but I'm really, really hoping that maybe we can get you on the show. That would be a lot of fun. And everything is, I just, I don't feel the urgency. I don't want to be blindsided either. I do want to be prepared. And I think that's part of the reason for us to get together on this channel sometimes, is to remind each other to get healthy, do what you can to take your power back, because if and when the grid system does go down, we're not going to have any abilities to get any prescription medications, and food is going to be difficult to come by, and there's going to be a lot of things that'll have to change. So I think now is a really good time to start taking your power back. Well, any time is good. I just think now is a little bit more important.
Right. And so, interesting thoughts.
Hey, thank you, Grizzly. Grizzly says rawr.
Thank you so much, Grizzly. Thank you guys so much for your support. There's major changes coming, and we're feeling it. And we know that what's happening, like on YouTube with the censorship, is forcing change. And, we are on BitChute, so you guys know as well. If you guys, if anything ever happened to us, you could find us over there. And but if you could keep watching here, at least there is some small income that comes in from the commercials. And somebody complained about 3 commercials in a video. But honestly, if you for what I would make more money in Walmart right now than what we're making here. That's the honest truth, as a door greeter. So that's where this has gone to. But it's not about money, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do next too. And I know there's a lot of people that are looking to put together communities and things like that. And I've always really loved that idea. it gets tough when you have a lot of people coming together, being harmonious and getting along. So, if there was something like that to happen, I would think there would have to be a case where, like, perhaps, a big plot of land was bought, and then people would buy in their own, like half an acre or whatever it is, quarter of an acre, whatever it is, whatever their own plot was, but then knowing that we're going to work together as a society. And I do think that is what's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. I think it's the only thing that's going to keep people together throughout these times, is people really coming together like that. And even the Wally World people are being replaced by robots. Mm-hmm. That's really true, So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. I still think that the strong likelihood is we're just going to get a trailer to attach to the truck at some point. And it would be nice to have a piece of land to go on that had, the utilities that you need, and then build from there. And Diana says she's in, and I know there's others that are in, like Sherry. I'm not sure if I saw Sherry in here. She's in Pennsylvania, and she would open up her doors, and we could go help her at her place, which is a farm. And there is also another lovely lady in North Carolina, very close to where we were living before, that would have done the same. And the property is beautiful, but I just don't feel the area. I don't feel it calling to my soul. I don't feel like that's where I'm supposed to be. So it's like I'm listening to that. And then I have a friend, a very good friend, that yesterday I just saw her pop up on Facebook saying, that she just moved to Austin. And I was like, you just moved to Austin? Yeah, she's just following spirit, and it's just amazing.
Thank you, Grizzly. Grizzly says, do not underestimate a good snuggly cave. We won't.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mars Fool's Gold. You can park our RV here in Chino Valley, Arizona. We love you, too. We love your input and being part of the family. That was Arizona, right? Yeah, Chino Valley, Arizona. We were just re-looking, again, at potential areas, and I think Arizona is super high on the list. Ultimately, as our ultimate stop, and also New Mexico, probably one of those two, because it is getting colder, guys. It is getting colder. I know Rex and Diamond, are in southern Colorado, but man, if it's going to get as cold as some people are thinking with the grand solar minimum, I just don't. It's cold there already and buried in snow already.
It is. I don't think we want to go where it's like that cold. But we are weighing things and looking at things and taking a peek around, and we'll see what happens. Something will reveal itself. That's mostly, I think, is what's going to happen. Something's going to show itself.
Yep. And I see Ray's in the house. I love you, brother. And he's in Texas now. He feels himself being pulled to Arizona. I've also looked at Texas as well. I know that some places in Texas I feel are going to get hammered, and they have been hammered. We've seen the floods, we see the hurricanes, so I think those are tough. I do love New Mexico. Actually, New Mexico really felt like home to me the first time I was there. It just kind of clicked. But yeah, a lot of people are being called to Arizona, a lot to New Mexico. I feel like it's going to be one of those two spots. At the same time, we were talking about what are we going to do as far as income and building some income, because I hate the system, with a passion. And so I really, one of the reasons why I haven't put any sort of endorsements, like I see so many do, doing Bitcoin, like Rex does Bitcoin and gold investment and stuff. I just hate it. I hate sales. I don't want to sell anybody anything. I did that stuff for too many years, And between sales and management, working for corporations that I couldn't stand, I just don't want to tarnish my soul, So it's not worth it to me. It'd be better off to be, homeless in a nice climate, or just, living out of a trailer, which is fine, because, the more we get in contact with nature, the better. Like, Cindy keeps saying, how much she liked. Like, we spent a lot of time in Tombstone, and around Tombstone, Bisbee, Wilcox, and that southern towards southeastern Arizona, and we were camping. I mean, we were in a tent, and we were fine.
We were. I really loved it there. It had a beautiful vibe. There were some pine trees, and I don't know, it's just a really cute, quaint little town, and it felt convertible, and that's something that, we could build something with that. This is a great little town here, but there's just not enough opportunity. So yeah, then there's that.
Exactly. And okay, so Nikki and Diana are both talking about New Mexico. I do love it, and I want Cindy to experience it because she hasn't experienced it. So we had to go to Shasta. I felt like we were called there, and then we spent a lot of time in Arizona, and we've kind of transversed all of Arizona from the southeastern corner through Tucson, through Phoenix, all the way up to the northwestern corner, and then through the central part. And, we love Flagstaff and Sedona. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. Love that area. Gonna look at some areas around there that might be a little bit less expensive and slightly warmer. Just because we really don't have a lot of means right now. And so, and I just have to show her, I have to take her through Albuquerque and up to, Santa Fe, because to me Santa Fe is magical. And then I think Nikki was talking about Earth ships. When you get up to Taos, there's complete off-grid communities up there, and I did see one Earth ship before. It's probably not for sale anymore. It was way out on its own, but it was really close to a river. It was more on the northwestern side, farther west than Taos. And it was really isolated, built into the side of a mountain. I loved it. It was really super cool. Just like all glass, facing out towards the south, built into the side of a mountain. I think they only wanted like $50,000 for it. And it wasn't really fully completed, so you'd have to keep working on it.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm pretty comfortable right here, right now. We're not looking to get up and move super quick, but we do, probably need to start looking around a little bit.
Nikki, where are you again exactly? I've been in some of the hot springs. Like I went, the mountains north, like up in the Santa Fe forest, or was it the Jemez? There was a mountain that we climbed to, and it was like 12,000 feet. It was pretty high up, and we found these hot springs, and the water was magnificent. It was like 106. It was wonderful. Loved the area. I loved the camping there. Beautiful pine forest. Zoltan says Arizona is safe. I think Arizona is mostly safe. I would be maybe a little bit concerned if you're all the way to the southwest, perhaps. But I do think that it's mostly safe. Yeah, you're right. The cards will tell us, and we're feeling like it's getting closer. We've been basically staying with her mom to help her mom in some ways, getting the house kind of ready so her mom could sell it when the time is ready, because her mom feels like this is not the place probably forever for her as well. And she loves trees and she loves green, so she wants to see some of that because there's trees in the yard. Thank you. It's time. We so appreciate it.
Thank you. This is YouTube just gave me this to give to certain channels. Thank you so much. It's time. We do appreciate that a lot. You guys are super awesome, and I do feel your love, and I do appreciate each and every one of you. I just love coming on here.
Yeah, we do love it. And we'd stay on talking with you guys all day. I'm sorry, my friend, to hear that your father departed. But yeah, the vibrations are different. And, I don't want to say too much, but my mom's getting ready to depart too. So she will probably be leaving this reality any hour or any day. And it's tough. I was just talking to her briefly this morning, and what do you say to somebody when it might be the last time you speak to them? It's like, it's tough, but at the same time, I almost know that I'm going to be able to communicate with her in a different way. That's even better after, which might sound crazy to you guys, but I still see my father on a regular basis in meditation and in my dreams, and he's been dead for 21 years, and we still communicate on a regular basis, and I know it's two-way communication. It's very, very real.
It is, yeah. It's a little bit sad. I don't know. What do you say to someone that's going through that? All I can do is sit here and baby my husband, because it's a pretty devastating thing to walk through, and it's not like it's happening quick. It's kind of slow, and yeah, so that's kind of difficult. I'm so sorry for anyone going through that right now.
Yeah, so I get tempted to do things like spur of the moment a lot, when you just feel like you just gotta experience a place, even when things are like they are now. And so, yeah, I really want Cindy to see, those areas in New Mexico too, because then I feel like we would have seen pretty much, everywhere that would be a good possibility for us. Like I told her, if this was a normal situation, I probably would be back in either Florida or South Carolina, because I love the South. I love the weather. I love the warmth. I don't mind the humidity. I love ocean, I love the Gulf, but, everything is so toxic now. The storms are getting stronger all the time. We see the flooding. And, even if this is completely manufactured, it doesn't seem like anything is getting, calmer, really. Even though for us here, it feels like, we're on a bubble, where nothing's hitting us. It's easy enough to see everything that's happening out there. And yet, no fear. And we see here red warnings issued, major snowfall with avalanche threat over northwest Italy. And we have extreme surfers catch record waves in Portuguese town, 65-foot waves, setting records. And we've seen some incredible waves. And when we've seen some of those meteo tsunamis, which are wind-driven tsunamis. If we are to take the Chan Thomas story as real, and Ben from Suspicious Observers, he's got like 300,000 subscribers. He's been doing this a long time. He's highly respected, and he seems convinced. Now, he is himself in New Mexico, somewhere outside of Albuquerque. I'm not sure on which side of town. I forget. Somebody told me once. I think he's on the east side. If we are going to be seeing these type of massive waves and inundations, and if we do have a real crustal displacement event, obviously anything on the coast isn't going to be safe at all, for sure, no matter how much we love the coasts. And and according to the Chan Thomas, the Adam and Eve story, you'd have to be more than 10,000 feet up a mountain to survive. Now, depending on how intense this particular time around is, somehow I don't feel that happening in my soul. I just don't feel it. And then, Cindy doesn't really feel it either.
No, I mean, I feel totally content, kind of.
You've never had like a foreshadowing of something like of that type of event?
No, no. Not exactly. I mean, I've had times where I felt a little bit shaky about things, but like here, I mean, I feel pretty good, really.
And, I do think that there's something going on with the whole ascension process. I do believe in splitting timelines, and perhaps we'll actually choose the timeline that we are aligned with vibrationally. And, perhaps some people will experience different things. Now, my daughter is in Ohio, and a big part of that is because she's terrified of tsunamis. She's had tsunami dreams all her life. And, so for her, growing up half a mile from the beach, it terrified her. And so she's, inland quite a bit now.
Yeah, I don't feel anything like major like that happening now, but I do feel the ascension symptoms. I do feel like the shadows are getting darker, and I do feel that need to separate the good from the bad and choose the higher road a lot of the time, because the shadows they're getting getting stronger, and it seems like the smaller a shadow, really, the darker and stronger it seems to get, and that's what I've been going through lately. But the energy work and the qigong and the training and whatnot and the eating right and all of those things, that's helped pull me through so far.
Most definitely. So yeah, we have to be in top shape in every way possible, and thus we are training hard physically every day. We do our qigong every day. We try to get our mantras and meditations in as well. A lot of days now lately, it's something gives, so we might miss one thing, but we're definitely honing body, mind, and spirit, and it's important in these times for us to do that. And it's also important for us to kind of let go and just relax and have a good time too. Because if you watch these things so intently, it can almost drive you crazy, right?
It can, yeah. I mean, there's balance too. That's one of the things that's part of my my path here on earth, is I'm supposed to find balance, because I've been so extreme, from swing the pendulum one way and it swings way far the other way and causes just as much trouble, the one way as it did the other way. So that's one of my things, as I have to find balance.
So Dark Crusher had a vision of a tsunami hitting the west coast. It came from the north to the south and the west to the east. It went far inland and then went into the earth and made a new sea. Where'd you see the new sea? Was it, as Casey said, with basically Gulf of Mexico and the Great Lakes just becoming a big body of water? As Azaduzaman says, it's collective conscious. And that's why I wonder about a lot of the prophecies and stuff. Are they given as a warning, or are they given to actually have it happen? Kentucky, okay.
Thank you, Wide and Awake and Baked and Risk Watcher. Thank you for all the info. Blessings, love, light. Thank you so, so much.
Yes, thank you so much for your support. Love that. Wide Awake and Baked. So things must be chilly in Denver, I'm sure. It ran to the great mountains in the west. Did you see it go over the biggest mountains that we have? That would be a hell of a tsunami. Yeah, so much changes going on. And so the next thing we look at is a gigantic 500-foot asteroid to fly by Earth on Monday and then come back in 7 years. Now, thankfully, because this is a big one, thankfully it's going to be about 13 times farther from the Earth than the Moon. Because I think we're up to about 70 that have come within that one lunar distance this year. So this one's going to come back on November 2026 as well. And I wouldn't even really call that a close call at 13 lunar distances. Hawaiian thunderstorms bring heavy rain and even some mountain snow to the Big Island. And record early opening at Bowler Mountain in Canada. This is up in Ontario. And Scott, one of our family members, is up in Ontario. And so the skiing system is in full swing there. And we were talking about the crops. Delayed U.S. corn harvest has resulted in chaos for trade routes. Yeah, there's obviously going to be an awful lot of political chaos going on. And, I feel blessed that we are where we are because we are so far away from everything. As I've shared with you guys, it's 73 miles for us to go to the grocery store. 73 miles to get to the grocery store. That's what we do. So we try to time it so we could go once every about 10 days. Yeah, there's a lot of people with stomach issues right now. I have a headache today that I know came from my neck, but I think it's because I didn't sleep last night. Mostly related, as Cindy thinks, I'm picking up on my mother because she had a really rough night last night as well. And that's part of being an empath. 2036, have you made your Christmas chains? I'm not sure what that was. People, 2046 is what Diehold figures the event's going to take place. And we talked about Corey Good saying it's going to be, he thought it was going to be before 2024, 2025. Interesting thoughts for sure. And so, baby boomers may put a tidal wave of 21 million homes on the market, but who's going to buy them? As you know, the fertility rate has been dropping like a rock, and if we had no immigrants, the U.S. would actually be losing population. Because people are having less kids, and for many reasons. And this is talking to the fact that baby boomers are getting older. Grizzly. You just keep giving.
People keep overlooking the New Madrid. It's actually a failed Rift Valley. A 7 or greater would be felt from coast to coast. Cut the states in half, and if you look at the Navy map, that's the new sea. Thank you, Grizzly, for that information, and thank you for the super chat. We so appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, most definitely. And I could feel that, and it felt like it might sound crazy to you guys, but after we got on this side of the Mississippi, I breathed a little bit easier. I feel like there's going to be safe zones over on the East Coast, mostly maybe up through the Appalachian Mountains. I think a lot of people would feel that way. And those mountains are special. Yeah, most definitely. There's some magic there. I mean, it had so many strange things happening over there all the time. It was just crazy. It was crazy. The activity, partly maybe the house was a little bit haunted in some ways, but there's a lot of nature spirits. There's a lot of just different things in those mountains. And, there's a lot over in the mountains over here as well. Very, very interesting. Yeah, New Madrid is huge. That's huge. But I think that we'll have warning for that because I really do think Cascadia is first and followed very shortly or almost concurrently perhaps with the San Andreas, which is really going to be triggered by the Garlock Fault, which is in motion now. So I do think that we are heading towards those major, this is my gut and just everything I've researched. I do think we're heading towards the major West Coast quakes. I do think they're getting closer, and I think they'll happen first before we have the New Madrid go. And then when New Madrid goes too, those that are living on the coast in South Carolina, be aware. Because you could have a big one down in the Charleston area. They've had it before. Major quakes could hit there as well. And that's one of my favorite towns, period, as well. So, yeah, as far as like
Nice, Stephanie. Love it.
Well, Stephanie, maybe you'll be with us wherever we're at, whether that's New Mexico or Arizona by then, so you don't, unless you want to go for the ride, and we'll pray for you. We love you, but
I believe in Stephanie. She's got this.
she does. Yeah. Perhaps ascension before that time as well. And Rizar is talking about weaponry at Ridgecrest, and I just don't. My gut says that Ridgecrest was not completely natural. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of new oceanfront property, that's for sure. And so, I was talking about the potential volcanic activity maybe over in North Carolina mountains, also in some areas in California, I'm hearing, and Soul Reviver can tell you guys about that in the chat room as well. Signs of volcanism going on in certain areas. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of activity from places that we don't expect it. So, is there a crash coming? Are we already looking at a crash in process? Is it going to be 2008? Is it going to be worse? I think most of us know there's something huge on the horizon. We could see this economically. I think a lot of the politics going on is distraction, for sure. Here, as you see, as Trump officials target California's homeless crisis, state officials brace for a fight. I just don't see where this country is one homogenous group. I mean, we are in the chat room here, a pretty homogenous group, but the way that the states are all just far too different. And, you got so many homeless in so many areas. We had a ton of them in Florida. They say about a quarter of all the nation's homeless are in California. And you got some of the most expensive places to live in this country in California. Look at San Francisco. It says that the people of San Francisco are fed up and the people of Los Angeles are fed up, and we're looking at it. This is President Trump's statement, and we'll be doing something about it at the appropriate time, talking about the homeless. And yet, what has the government done? They've cut food stamp funding, and so I find it interesting. We could get many of us like I'm more libertarian. I don't believe in big government at all. I'd like to see no federal government. I think that would be ideal, and have the states have their own power. And so, because that would, in my mind, inhibit the power being consolidated into the hands of the few. And breaking things up into smaller groups might be the way to take power out of the hands of the ones that are controlling everything right now. And it's hilarious when the whole amount of money that's spent on the food stamp program, is it's minuscule compared to the military spending. Minuscule. You can't even you can't compare them. So, sure. I mean, I think the majority of us don't want big control by Big Brother. And I think we should have Big Brother go permanently away forever. I think we should break it down. And I know Florida McKee talks about states and secession. And I think ultimately the only way to take power out of the hands of the few is to break it down into such small pieces that they can't control it like they have been.
Right. And it's all about the money. You follow the money. All roads lead to Rome. And it's just disgusting what they do to people. They make money off the homeless. They make money off of people who need food. My daughter, that brings me back to the WIC program. My daughter had twins about 5 years ago, and when they were little, she couldn't bring in the breast milk, so she had to go with formula. And as long as the children got their vaccinations, they would provide the money for the formula. And for those kids, it was like $500-$600 a month, which we didn't have. And it's just so corrupt. And what a tit for tat. That was quite horrible, because I'm totally against vaccinations, and I got the bare minimum for the kids, and talked to my daughter. I talked to Wick, but yeah, it's ridiculous, the stuff they put us through.
Yeah, exactly. It's really sad. And yeah, the homeless have to learn faith in a way that most people never get the chance. So true. It's so true. It's hilarious and sad that like things like basics, like formula, is so expensive. But of course, you're much better off to breastfeed, even though there's glyphosate in mother's milk in most cases. But it does help the immune system develop. Everything about our society is completely ass backwards when you get down to it. And people are waking up and recognizing this in droves now, which is beautiful. Yeah, I agree with your statement there, Quartz, and Julian's statement as well. It is. It's all about consolidating power. Always consolidating power, controlling resources, controlling all the seeds, and then making GMO seeds so they can't replicate, so you could control the food supply. It's so sad. And, I did a video on Ensure, basically, because, it's like my sister told me that they want to give my mom Ensure. And of course, my sister is, she's in the midst of that. She's a nurse. She believes in the medical system. So we completely disagree and don't see anything eye to eye. And so I did a video on that, just showing how, if you're giving somebody with cancer Ensure, you're feeding the cancer. It's so stupid. It's just completely stupid. But yet this is what we have in this society. It's really sad.
It is sad. And if you look at the ingredients on it, sure, I wouldn't feel comfortable feeding that to my dogs. But people think because there's vitamins in it, somehow those vitamins are going to absorb into the body. But I don't see how they can with all that sugar in there. I think when something is loaded with sugar, it fills the cells up with sugar, which doesn't leave any room for other nutrients.
So the reason why I include this in there is because I feel that part of the plan is a breakup of things. I think that there's powers that be that would love to see civil war and revolution, but yet I think what needs to happen is the states need to take back their own authority, and we need to really break up the federal government. Do you think Russia and China would come attack and just sweep right in? If we didn't have the big federal government? What do you guys think about that? I mean, because that's the type of fear-mongering that they will push, But when we see it, it's like, it's not a unified country. People really have totally different views. So, California, Washington, Oregon, very liberal for the most part. And, so different than if we're talking about South Carolina, Alabama, Kentucky, and so many other areas that are completely conservative. And then you got your swing states that could kind of go either way, that are a true mix, like Ohio and Florida, where it's, Florida, if you're on the coasts, you might be a little more liberal. If you're down through the center and up into the panhandle, it gets a lot more conservative. But, ultimately, we as a nation, it's a pretty big, expansive nation, and it's been used. I mean, I was thinking about doing a video just on the wars that the U.S. has been in, because most people don't even recognize that. Do you know most people, when they asked, I saw this video where a guy was out there and he was just asking run-of-the-mill people right out there in L.A., who fought the Civil War? And most of them, the majority, was like 60%, didn't know. They didn't know who even fought in the Civil War. And it's pretty crazy. And most people don't know there was a Spanish-American War. Most people don't know exactly how the U.S. came about to own all these different possessions that it owns across the globe. And really, when you get down to it, the British Empire never died. This was the next stage. And when you get down to it, the Roman Empire never died. It just changed. It morphed. And so we still have the same situation going on. It's still the same situation in play. Pax Romanus is Pax Americanus. It's just changed. It's just morphed, but it's all the same. Yeah, and Susan's talking about the sugar in a meteor. Yes. And the thought that could have contributed to our RNA and actually contribute to life. So, looking forward, we see here, Harvard-Yale game ends in a near darkness after climate change protests. So yeah, these protests that we're seeing around the globe, they're going to keep increasing. They are going to keep increasing. This is just starting here. Just starting. And so this is the Caretaker Gazette. And so thank you, Anna, for sending this to me. Just to give you guys other alternative ideas. House sitting. You could house sit in many places around the globe. There's actually a big need for people to house sit. And here you see horse caretaker groundskeeper needed for private property located in Carson Valley in Nevada. You could actually live rent-free. Yeah, Cindy likes that.
I want a pony.
She does. She wants a pony. She just wants a pony. That's all she wants in this life is a pony. When we were going to Shasta, we drove by so many wild horses. She's like, "Can't you just give me one, please?"
If I was given a box of horse shit, I would open it up and be super happy just knowing that there's a pony close.
Yes. And Soul Reviver bringing up District of Columbia, right? It's separate, just like the Vatican City is separate. And there's something about London that goes along with that as well. And we brought up before, it's interesting that, the legend, the prophecy of the city on seven hills being destroyed and how it's really talking about the system. It's really about the system because isn't it curious that DC, New York, Rome, London, and Jerusalem are all on seven hills? That's curious.
That is really curious. I don't know really what to think about that.
Well, that's how we're controlled, through our religion, through our money, through our politics, through the war machine that the United States is now, which is still just an extension of the same people that have controlled power for thousands of years, going down through these families.
So I guess that's why people like us, we're here as a star family, and I do believe we are volunteers. We come down here with a streak of rebellion in us, and our rebellion has earned us not such good seats in the life of normal society. So we've had a hard time. A lot of us here have really been dealt a harsh hand.
Yeah, and Old Rider says, come to Alberta, lots of horses here. We've actually even looked at Canada. We actually even talked about Alaska. I just don't like the cold weather at all, and I think it's going to get colder. But, it's one of those things. You have to make an educated decision on where to go and where to set up camp and where you're going to make your stand. And perhaps a lot of people are going to be nomads. There's a lot of nomads out there now. Look at all the people. We just were looking at 500,000, that lost their homes in Somalia, or 500,000. Look at the millions that are getting uprooted. So, eventually, are we going to become nomadic, those that survive? Interesting thoughts as well. And here's Mind My House. So you could actually look for a house to sit. What sounds good to you guys? You want to go to Argentina? Well, they had some protests. Maybe we shouldn't go there. Australia is wonderful, but you guys got the fires. But there's so many wonderful people in Australia. Bangladesh, that's flood prone for sure. Belize, well, yeah, Belize is nice. Bolivia, they've got their issues too. It's fascinating, but you can see, there's a lot of house sitting jobs up in Canada. Yep, we could do that. It's be a little chilly. Denmark, Ecuador, So, there are options. There are options, and there are a lot of communities that really are developing as well.
Yeah, there are. This is a curious journey. Life is a journey. It's not really a, a dress rehearsal. We're in these flesh suits. Well, this flesh suit this one time. So, let's make the best of it. Even though I'm a little bit afraid to go anywhere, it's just sort of kind of stuck in me. I know it's good for me to move and make change. It's really good to get out of your comfort zone.
I'm gonna look up Slab City. I'm curious. I know there's so many things developing right now because people are being pulled together. Okay, cool. Slab City. So it's a snowbird community in the Sonoran Desert. And so it's 100 miles northeast of San Diego. Interesting. Yeah, it definitely gets toasty there, 120. Live off grid and be left alone. So the site's decommissioned, uncontrolled, no charge for parking, no official electricity, running water, sewers, toilets, or trash pickup. And people are using generators and solar panels. So Nyland is the closest place where they do shopping. So it's interesting. It's an enclave of anarchy. And you know what? Maybe anarchy isn't so bad. Is Bill in the house? I didn't see Bill in the house because he's an anarchist. We had that talk once before. It's not what we're taught. Anarchy is just no big overhead government. Diana says there are robberies, there are occasional pirates. You gotta just be careful of people. You really do, and know who you're getting in with. So Quartz says that he's a new ager, and I always found that it's a hilarious term in some ways. We're looking forward to a new age, so that's good. But New Age movement's been so demonized by the fundamentalists, really. But of course, there's infiltrators in every good movement. And we saw what happened with Christianity. It gets waylaid. Buddhism was waylaid as well. It got very dogmatic in some sects. Unfortunately, that is what happens. And Diana's looked into that place as well. Yeah, it's really where our heart's at, Truth, love, and peace. That's really, that's what we are striving for.
It is. And, people talk about New Age crap, yet all the New Age stuff that I've seen has been pretty old. It all comes from ancient times, and I do believe in it. I do believe in shamanism. I believe in a lot of the old ancient writings. I don't think it's really new. It's just like Michael said, we're looking forward to a new way of being, maybe.
So, yeah, I think we could do better too, Diana. I think we could. Yeah, you want solid neighbors, as Ray says. No question of intention. And yeah, free thought domain. I agree. I think it's organized. Very, very well organized and hidden in some ways. That sounds beautiful, Alish. 40 acres with a river that flows down from a glacier. And David was talking about the Epstein case and everything. And did you hear about that machete attack in the UK with like a crowd of 100 people? That was pretty crazy. really pretty crazy. So it's, without a doubt, we can understand the desire to disconnect from society as a whole, and to find our own little Garden of Eden and start something anew. And I think that that's what's going to happen in many cases, in many different groups, kind of spontaneously across the globe, as people wake up, really wake up and just say, I want to get out of this system. How can we truly, make the government smaller and get rid of it even? Yes, Osboy, we should start our own EEA town. We're waiting for you to get over and help us, pick out the right spot. Rhonda says 5 acres. She has 5 acres of Cowlitz River property in Packwood, Washington. Yeah. Beautiful, chilly, but it's again, things are changing. 2.5 acres in Hallbrook, Arizona. I do think Arizona and New Mexico feel like the best spots, at least to me. And I've seen some reasonable properties out there too. Yeah, Bigfoot capital, right?
I know, I kind of like Bigfoot personally. I do think that it's an interdimensional being. I think I've had quite a few experiences with Bigfoot. Like when I was little, we used to go riding horses up into the mountains. Well, I went by myself, and I would hear this little meow, and I really feel like they were watching me, because I would get off my horse and go look for this little kitten. And I know now there's no way there was a little kitten up in the woods. It's just totally retarded to think that there was a little kitten. But it's like something was leading me here and there and making little kitten noises. So yeah, I like Bigfoots. They're fun.
And Chris likes Death Valley. Well, yeah, come for a visit. It's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, it's like it's become kind of home. It has. I've gotten kind of used to it. Do I miss trees? Yeah. Miss trees. Feels great to be in the forest like we were up in Shasta. It felt wonderful to be around Flagstaff. I love Flagstaff area, and Sedona. It's just so beautiful. Pretty expensive, but gonna keep looking. We'll be following the seasons. Perhaps that's it, Rhonda. Perhaps it's not just one spot, and maybe we'll have to migrate from one to another. Death Valley is a wee bit desolate. Yeah. We did find a tarantula yesterday, though. So Cindy has a new pet. And
No, I did. I almost stepped on the poor feller, and he's like huge. He was as big as my hand. And I think they can bite, but they prefer to throw their hair. So it was a little scary, and it was a brown one. And then I learned that usually it's only the males that travel, and only after 9 years old. I never knew that. And I've lived here for how long? Just too long to not know that.
yeah, Raven did send me a pic, and that thing would have to have been like 20 feet high, didn't it? I mean, it seemed like it was huge. It was a black object that was there, and then it wasn't there anymore. So it was big. Whatever it was big. I do think there's a lot of big feet up in in that area, western mountains in North Carolina and into Tennessee. And we could share images. Send them to evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. Diana, they're generally felt to be fairly benevolent, but there might be different types as well. As far as that goes, one a friend of mine that he hiked the entire Appalachian Trail, all the way, up to Maine. And he had a Bigfoot encounter around just southwest of Waynesville, which is an adorable little town, which I really did enjoy Waynesville a lot in North Carolina. And he communicated with it telepathically. I believe him. And his impression was that it was a benevolent, very ancient being on a very high spiritual plane.
Yeah, I do believe there's different kinds. I know, like I learned later, after I've had all these experiences, that sometimes if they don't want you to follow a certain path, they will throw like trees in the way, big logs. They'll tear stuff up and they'll just make a mess out of something, and that's asking you nicely, please don't come into our territory. I never knew that before. I know now.
And so, the thing that I didn't like about the eastern part of the country is all the nuclear reactors. There are a ton. And, if the grid's going to go out, and I would lay money that it is going to go out, I feel like the government's already told us that they're going to be an issue. And that's one of the main reasons I felt heading west is best. And also just because of the vastness of things out here. So where you look, where the nuclear reactors are mostly centered in the east. If you're anywhere from here in the Midwest over, think about the potential here for all these Fukushimas to go.
I didn't know it was that thick. I don't know if I'm gonna go that end of the states. Wow.
No, yeah, there's a ton. There is a ton. So when you look at here, there's nothing. There is around Phoenix. There is one. So and also nuclear. I've studied a lot of different stuff for years now. If you look at nuclear fallout in case of a war, you could see what it would look like, which is not so good. Interestingly enough, Oregon, Northern California look okay. Mm-hmm. Just the middle strip in Nevada looks okay, but because, San Diego, LA, San Francisco, all would be targets. Not too good here. There is actually, this is around Sierra Vista. It's a military installation down here. Would be a target. That's why I was thinking before. It's this part of New Mexico, or it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss depending on what's going to happen. But the nuclear reactors, that situation on the eastern side doesn't seem good to me. And I do think that, we've already seen a lot of times locally power outages, if we end up having rolling grid failures, because, what's coming with the sun? What's really coming with the sun? We're going to have the grid going down. It's probably coming.
Well, I was thinking the other day, since it's Mother Earth's Earth, in theory, she's the one who puts all these particles together. I mean, really, wouldn't she be able to sort of disintegrate everything and put everything back in its place so it wouldn't be so destructive to her? I think I understand, like when the volcanoes were going off on Kilauea, the water was actually being purified from the lava. So that's like one way that she purifies herself. I do think that there's a way that Mother Earth can take care of all of this. She can put everything back to where it belongs.
Yeah, and that's part of the bigger picture. But what's going on right now is obviously we're in this transition period, and so that's why I feel like the West is the better place. Also, when we look at population density too, that comes into play, because obviously if you watch any of those apocalypse type movies, humans are the things you got to watch out for. We're talking Walking Dead, stuff like that. It's not the dead, they're the ones you got to worry about.
I am a little fearful of people, actually.
There are always opportunists.
Yeah.
And so when you look at population density, It was actually, I heard it said that if you cut a line and you go basically through San Antonio, Austin, and straight up here, right up through this line, 80% of the people in the country are east of that line. So only 20% of the people in the country are west, and that's splitting the country basically in half. So it's a big difference. And when we look at some of these areas, there's not a lot of population. I mean, you can see here in Nevada, there's just almost nobody. It's 85% owned by the government too, and that's for a reason. There's a lot of underground bases here. There's a lot of gold mining and jewels and things like that that's going on. I think the government wants to keep that for themselves. And again, the government's really the corporations and really the families that have been running this going back to the Roman times and before.
It makes me curious about Nevada. How can it look so desolate on the ground, yet it's so mineral rich and literally rich with gold and minerals and gems? It's just really kind of curious to me.
Yeah, it is. And there was the other, let me see if I can find it here. Government owned property.
I know used to, like, if you owned land in Nevada, you kept your own mineral rights, but the last people that owned the mineral rights, they died, and of course that law changed. So if you sit on property with gold on it and government finds it, you're kind of SOL. That was the last I heard on that law. And another thing, I've seen maps of the Navy where they show Nevada underwater. I don't think that's going to happen because there's just too many military bases around here, too many DUMs, too much military stuff. So I think that could be a way to just maybe drive people out with that Navy map. I don't know. It's curious though.
So here, this is who owns the West. Look at this. This is federal land as a percentage of total state land area. And as we were talking about, Nevada's like 85% is owned by the government. Wow. Right? 48% of Arizona, 41% of New Mexico, almost half. Utah, more than half. Colorado, 36.6%. Wyoming, 42.3%. Montana, 29.9%. Idaho, half. And Washington, 30%. Oregon, more than half, 53%. California, 45%. Alaska, 69%. So why? Why? Ask yourself, if the government knows what's coming, if they know what's coming, why do they own all these vast stretches of the West? What do you guys think? Free Flow says, yeah, they'll sell you a bunch of land for dirt cheap with no water rights. Dig and pan for gold. Yeah. I mean, we do find all sorts of interesting stuff out here. We should go to those hot springs you were telling me about too.
Yeah, we'll go today maybe. They have some really nice mineral springs out here that a lot of people don't know about, and the water is super mineral rich, very, very good for the skin and bones.
Yeah, so why do you think they own that West? Alish says maybe because of the gold. Yeah, and again, what the Anunnaki came for? The gold, right? So yeah, gold, I think also maybe other reasons. For one, there's a ton of bases here under the ground, and then you can't have people living on top of you, and discovering that. It's really interesting. Yeah, Agenda 2130, I agree. I totally agree. It's part of the bigger plan. And yeah, all that land they stole from the natives, most definitely. They stole all of it. Yeah, the East too, unfortunately, that's and it's the system again. And then wiping out all the artifacts that could give us a clue as to what really happened. And then forcing our kids to learn history that is total BS, as well as science that is taking us off in the wrong direction on purpose.
Yeah, and then our kids take pride in what they've learned because they've earned that badge or that star or that 100%. And, You know, it's really hard to unlearn stuff because you want to hold on to that pride. You want to hold on to your efforts. And that, you know, that's just another way they whittle down our self-esteem.
Most definitely. So, guys, I want to thank you all for your support as always. Everybody that is interested, want to join us over on Patreon. There you can see some videos that don't go up on this venue, and also support the channel, keep us flowing and able to do this, or with Ko-Fi. Make sure you're subscribed to the second channel as well, EE Arts. And I want to thank everybody for joining us once again and for your contributions. We love you guys a ton, and you are our family.
We love you guys. Take care and namaste.
Namaste.